Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the PA Ramp Camp webinar on the Classroom and Group Mindsets and Behaviors Action Plan. We will be talking about the what, when, where, why, and how of this document and template when it comes to the PA Diamond Award and the ASCA National Model Ramp Recognition. So, our learning objectives today are to create a classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan that is aligned with the American School Counseling Association National Model and RAMP scoring rubric. We will also discuss the importance of planning and implementing the classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan. So, a little bit about myself. Who am I? My name is Haley King. I am a school counselor at West Hempfield Elementary, preschool to fifth grade. I included our preschool class that was grant funded into interventions this year. I'm a member of the Pennsylvania School Counseling Association and American School Counseling Association, as well as Westmoreland County and Allegheny County School Counseling Associations. I did earn RAMP while I was a K-4 school counselor at Propel McKeesport, and did recently receive the Bill Lee Leadership Grant recipient through PSCA. I am looking to ramp again this current school year for my current school. That's interesting because I'm helping with this ramp camp. So hopefully I can be that middle ground person that not only has the professional knowledge of earning ramp before, but also going through the actual process of it as well right now. I have presented on the district, county, and state level before. I did help my coordinator of people services, Dr. Lisa Maloney, with a presentation about using a coaching model for district-wide ASCA implementation during the spring of 2022 PSCA online conference. And I also presented with a previous coworker of mine, Carly Karcher, who is currently at Baldwin School District. And we presented on the county level to Allegheny County School Counselors Association and to our previous district, Propel Charter Schools, on building a comprehensive school program. So let's talk about the what. What is a classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan? So a classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan, it shows success that is not outcome data. A lot of our documents go through discipline, attendance, and achievement data. This is one of those things that does not focus on that. So what are students learning besides that? We have those mindsets and behaviors. So the ASCA mindsets and behaviors, that is on the website. If you do not know where to find it, schoolcounselor.org. And it goes through those soft skills, those non-cognitive factors and skills that are essential to helping students learn. So for outcome data, we can't just say that we want to improve attendance. There has to be something else with that. You can't just improve attendance. How are you improving attendance? Do they see value in education? Do they have supports? That is included in those mindsets and behaviors. The curriculum plan, it shows when students are learning these. And most importantly, this document is used to show how you are implementing instruction. Just remember to coordinate it with your other action plans and your calendar. Whatever is on those documents, such as closing the gap, annual calendar, your annual outcome goal plan, your administrative conference template, make sure any interventions or mindsets and behaviors that are mentioned are also on this document as well. And it shows what you are adequately addressing. So, are we focusing a lot on coping skills and not a lot on the learning skills? Do you have an influx of self management skills versus social skills? What are you focusing on? It allows you to see Are you evenly distributing your interventions? Or are we focusing too much on social skills and we need to even that out a little bit more? With saying that, however, if you do have a gap and a need in your school to improve social skills, you should be showing that you are focusing on social skills more in this document. So what is the why? Why do we have to have this document? Why do we have to create a curriculum, mindsets, and behaviors action plan? Well, for first, it shows a systematic approach for all students. You should be showing interventions for all grade levels on here. If you look at your document and first grade is nowhere to be shown in an elementary case, then you might want to look and see what your first graders need. Are you doing any interventions with them? Did you just forget to track it? Why is first grade not on your template? So the big approach is all students. We have to show that all students are getting some sort of intervention with mindsets and behaviors. It also shows that there's an effective plan that's thoughtfully scheduled. We're not just saying, okay, well, we're going to improve coping skills. Well, how are you going to do that? Is it going to be through a small group, a large group, a classroom, a lesson? What is that? We also identify targets that are addressed. What is your counseling program addressing? That can show it to stakeholders. It also is a schedule for interventions. So we are defining our scope, focus, timing, and setting in this little document. We identify if it is it a group, small group, classroom. That also goes into settings for interventions as well as to the why. We're capturing that implementation. Most importantly, the why for this is advocacy, as we always say. This shows a proactive approach. This document is one of the first things that you should be doing for the school year. So it shows what your plan is going forward. You're not waiting to say that your second grade group of students does not have social skills. They don't know how to solve problems. They don't know how to talk to each other. So we wait to input that. You're using the data that you have to proactively plan your year out through groups, large groups, classroom lessons. So let's talk about the where. Where do we find this template? Here's a screenshot from my computer. So if you go onto schoolcounselor.org, you will see that you are under the Recognize, Ask a Model Program, RAMP templates. So first you'll want to go to schoolcounselor.org, and then you're going on this side, there will be where it says recognition. And then you will click on Recognize, Ask a Model Program, RAMP. And this green arrow is pointing over here. There is templates, and you can download a file with all the templates, or it cut off, but there is a red bar on this side, over on this, right there. And you can select one by one what you want to download. Okay, so let's talk about the how. We went over the where, the why, and the what. How do we do this? You have to pull up your template first, and then you can start to use this RAMP rubric to plug in your information. Look at your data. What are your goals? What are your needs? So one of the first things you're doing in the school year is you're creating an annual goal based off of outcome data, such as attendance, discipline, or achievement. Are there gaps? What is your closing the gap plan? What are the big needs? So that doesn't mean that the only things on this document, the classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan, it only includes what's on your goal plan and your closing the gap plan. This is all of your interventions. So you should have more lessons and groups throughout the year that aren't part of your closing the gap plan and your annual goal plan. You're going to have more needs. For example, if you look at your discipline data and you see I can speak for myself this year in kindergarten. It was a really rough year in kindergarten. I think we're seeing a lot of the COVID pandemic side effects with this class. We had a lot of discipline reported. And at the beginning of the year, it was multiple students. Towards the end of the year, it was just a few. So it showed what we were doing was working. However, I use that data to keep in my mind for next year. That's possibly my closing the gap goal, depending on what other data I look at between achievement and attendance. On the other side, our fourth grade students also had a high level of discipline reported. I can't include both of those within the same interventions. They're two totally different grade levels. So if I choose to focus on kindergarten, next year will be first grade, I make interventions on closing the gap for them. However, my fourth grade still has a need. So what am I doing in my classroom group mindsets and behaviors action plan? Is that more small groups for what would be the fifth graders? Is that more classroom lessons focused on coping skills or conflict resolution skills? Those are ways that you can input different interventions that aren't solely part of your annual outcome goal plan or your closing the gap plan. A good thing to remember is you do not cover all the mindsets and behaviors. Your goal is to not fill in this document so there's no blanks. In Pennsylvania, we have a Chapter 339 plan or guidance plan, and that should address all K through 12. The big goal is that all these mindsets and behaviors will somehow be meaningfully addressed from kindergarten to 12th grade, not in one single school year for K to 5 or 6 to 8, 9 to 12, whatever your building is or your grade levels are. So let's look at the first example. We are going to go over some examples of entries. These first ones are lessons. When it comes to lessons, remember title versus topic. The topic is what you are covering. For example, a lesson titled A Bug and a Wish is not specific. If someone reads A Bug and a Wish on a piece of paper, they have no idea what that is. So therefore, I can put A Bug and a Wish and then put the topic, self-advocacy skills. So these are examples in this document of my current plan. It has to be specific and it has to let the reader know what the lesson portrays. So we see Bug and a Wish, self-advocacy. If we look at this example, listening and paying attention, a lot of people can probably assume that those preschool to second grade lessons are about listening and paying attention. It's not identified as something such as big ears, big eyes, or watch like a hawk and listen like a mouse, or something like that, that someone can read, they know what it is, or they don't know what it is. So remember, title versus topic. Also, if you use another curriculum, such as we use Smart Futures, you can put that in there. Smart Futures lesson, how to be an ultra good listener, first grade. Now let's look at how you would track the group mindsets and behaviors. So just to review, this is the rubric. So far, we have talked about where you find the template, which is 3A. Then we talked about classroom mindsets and behaviors action plan as it pertains to classroom lessons, which is 3B. We're now moving on to small groups, which is part of 3C. Okay, so these are some examples. One thing that I actually learned this year that is different from when I earned RAMP before was that ASCA wants people to be specific about students for the group. You cannot say fourth grade students. Is that group open to all fourth grade students then? That's the question. So if I put that calm down, let's look at this first or second example here. Calm down crew identifying coping skills section. We see two things. First, I'm not just putting the group name and fourth grade students. I am being specific. So fourth grade students who what? What fourth grade students are participating in this group? The fourth grade students that were participating in this group were students who are marked Tier 2 or Tier 3 on our universal screener. And then if we look on the group name, you want to remember that you don't want to put the group for every mindsets and behaviors that they could possibly cover in the entire group. So you need to pick a primary mindset and behavior or list specific sessions. For example, under Calm Down Crew, it says identifying coping skills sessions. We would focus on this mindset and behavior for coping skills, but then there are other mindsets and behaviors that we focus on in other sessions. If you only focus on one mindsets and behaviors for the entire group, for example, I had a self-control group, and that's what it was about. It was 6 to 8 sessions solely focusing on self-control and self-discipline. So under that, I did not specify any sessions. I just put self-control patrol small group. If we look up here at some other examples, we have our Worry Warriors group. So this is the name of the session, naming my worries and what is a worry session. And then on this side, we have first and second grade students identified as anxious by universal screeners. So that is who participated. And our last example down here, this Kindergarten group was a social skills group. We worked on teamwork game sessions. So we played games and focused on teamwork. This is what this mindset and behavior focus was, and the kids who participated were kindergarten students who received early intervention and or identified on the first universal screener as lacking social skills. Okay. So just remember, you do not have to have all mindsets and behaviors on this action plan filled out. That is not the goal. The goal is to show what you are doing throughout the year. I have heard a lot of questions of, well, what happens if I get my universal screeners back and I didn't really see a need for a worry group, but then when we did our second round in January, there was 15 kids in first grade who were marked as a 2 or 3 in worry. You can go back to this document and update it. I had to go back to my document about every 9 weeks and just focus and say to myself, okay, what groups did I implement? Did I make sure I tracked this? Did I make sure I tracked that? Because your needs are going to change if you do something like universal screeners or tracking discipline with your principal. I know we do discipline through a Google form. That's one thing my principal and I worked on together this year. And I was very adamant to the staff that the only reason I have access to see the discipline reports on the Google form is to just identify trends. So I mentioned fourth grade before. If we had 10 discipline referrals in 2 weeks in fourth grade, I should say to myself, ooh, what's the problem there? And then I would make an intervention such as a group or add a classroom lesson, and I have to make sure I add that to my classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan because that's an intervention. This is a working document. You can go back to it. If you plan to do a self-control group this year and you put that on at the beginning of the year, but miraculously you did not need that self-control group, you don't want to leave it on there because it's not an intervention that you did that year. Now we're going to move on to the reflection questions. What's nice about this section is there's 2 reflection questions, but they are the same. So you are going to give an example that demonstrates how an identified activity fostered development of specified ASCA student standards to which it is attached. That's very wordy. Basically, what you're doing is you're walking through a process such as a lesson or a group to show how those students learned and obtained information to demonstrate that mindsets or behaviors. For example, if you pick the mindsets and behavior of effective coping skills, you would go into an explanation of how did students improve or gain effective coping skills in that lesson or that group session. So you can say, we talked about appropriate versus inappropriate coping skills. Then we reviewed the feelings. What feelings are there? What feelings may you have to use coping skills for? Some people don't need coping skills for excitement or anxiety or nervous or worried. Some people might need coping skills for anger. They might not. What do those individual students have to use coping skills for? So then you can say we connected what feelings that they have that they need coping skills to appropriate coping skills. And then you can describe how you went into a role play with those skills with students. And then you reviewed using something such as a game, and students got more practice using practicing coping skills, finding what works for them. And then they pick one as homework, so to say, for the next week to try. Keep in mind, this would be more descriptive if you're typing it out, but just as an example of what they're looking for. And you would do that for 2 different things. One of the keynotes that I learned from one of the ASCA webinars is it's actually a good point of reference to use something on your action plan. So if you're talking about this coping skill example, that might be something on your classroom mindsets and behaviors results plan. That way they can see it. And you can always upload a lesson plan or a group session to that supplemental documents too on the RAMP application. Okay, so I included this. This is in the implementation guide. This is just some do's and don'ts. So include all activities delivered to large groups, grade levels, or all students. Link all activities to ASCA student standards. Include lessons delivered by other personnel. So are teachers doing social emotional lessons? Are social workers doing groups? Are they helping you with that? Psychologists, nurses, etc. Don't include activities targeted toward parents. This is solely student focused. This is direct student service that you are doing. And don't include activities that occur beyond regular school hours. This is a picture of your school day during the whole year. Okay, so today our learning objectives were to create a classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan aligned with the ASCA national model and RAMP scoring rubric. We also wanted to discuss the importance of planning and implementing a classroom and group mindsets and behaviors action plan. I hope this webinar helped you meet those objectives. If it did not, we have open office hours later on in the summer, earlier in the fall. If anyone needs help, you can reach out to us. And your next webinar, I believe, is going to be on the annual calendar. So thank you everyone for watching and have a great summer.